Next, we're going to start examining the nature of this reality, because how are we living in a reality and we don't know the nature of it? And we don't know the laws of it. How are we existing well? The answer is we will not exist well. But I'm reading from Kemetic Yoga, the Philosophy of Enlightenment by Dr. Muata Ashby. I have it on my Amazon storefront if you're interested in picking it up. So now we are here, and let's talk about the topic of evil. Okay. All things in creation, that is matter, came from the original oneness, the original Ntr, N-E-T-E-R. All things were one and undifferentiated. That means not divided into different objects with different names and forms. Ntr has created matter, but also lives in it as its soul. The soul part of Ntr forgets it is Ntr and sees itself as an individual among many individuals. I think that's really important. So I'll read it again. All things were one and undifferentiated, meaning not divided into several different objects. Ntr has created matter, but also lives in it as soul. The soul part of Ntr forgets that it is Ntr and sees itself as an individual among many individuals. It sees itself as an individual among many. But there is no separation. When we become an individual, or begin to see, rather, ourselves as individuals of many individuals, that is a type of forgetting, but it's not really forgetting. Let's just say our consciousness becomes localized, pointed in a particular direction, such that it is no longer omniscient and omnipresent due to the vessel that it is in. Is that making sense? So even though we have this vessel, it doesn't mean that we're separate. We get the illusion of separateness because of the vessel and its limitations. In giving rise to matter, Ntr has created the illusion of duality, separation from itself. It's not a real separation. It's an illusion. Think about makeup. Makeup, if we contour makeup, you can give the illusion of higher cheekbones. Is there really a higher cheekbone there once you put the makeup on? No, it's an illusion, right? In the same way, the illusion of separation gives rise to feelings such as fear, greed, hatred, and anger, because the individual believes that he or she must fight for his or her survival. Since the individual does not remember that he or she or they are immortal and part of all other things, he or she develops the idea of looking out for self, looking outward for self, and of having a good time since you only live once, quote unquote. This imbalance develops due to the ignorance about one's spiritual nature. Therefore, ignorance is the root of all evils. This was some pretty sound logic right here. Ignorance. Hey, Healing, how you doing? Thank you for being here. Ignorance is the root of all evil. So I want to read that paragraph again. It's super important. A question I'm always asking people is, what are you? What I'm asking is, do you know your nature? I'm never asking, who are you? Because that's an illusion. That's a name. That's something you take off and put on. That's something that changes based upon how you are seeing yourself and others, or what other people think. It is about existing with others. But when you understand your nature as one with all there is, you begin to have a very different experience. And there was some sound logic in this paragraph. I'm going to read it again. Okay? Type Ashe if you're here for this teaching. You understand what it's going to be about now. That's the premise of almost all of it. Let me know if that's something you're interested in, because it's necessary. It's necessary. Ashe, Zoe, welcome. Chai, is that how I say your name? Chai Healing? Besides said Ashe. Okay, 64, you made it back. So let me read that once again. We have ended the series on the 9 parts of self. We're picking up on right now the topic of evil. We're going to start discussing the nature of the universe. Okay, we're on the nature of the universe now. All things in creation came from the original oneness, the original Netr. N-E-T-E-R, Netr, is the divine, the all. Okay, N-E-T-E-R, Netr. All things were one and undifferentiated, meaning it was not divided. Hey, Desiree, it was not divided into different objects with different names and forms. Okay, and since there was no division, no eyes to see, no ears to hear, there was energy, undifferentiated energy. Okay, and nature has created, we're using this word created, but we understand that science tells us that energy is neither created or destroyed. No, it's rearranged. Okay, so for example, if I have some clay and I start molding the clay into a vessel, I am rearranging the clay. And I may say I'm creating a pot, I'm making a pot. But no, what I am doing is molding that clay into a different form. That's why created is in quotes. Okay. So there was the original undifferentiated nature, the all there is. The Netr has created, remember, we're talking about rearranging, not taking energy from somewhere or subtracting from itself. No, rearranged energy. That's important. Because if you think that the all can separate parts of itself, then you don't believe that the all is in all, right? Because that means it could come separate. There's no separation. There's rearrangement, right? Different frequencies, different vibrations and such. Is that making sense? I am going out of my way to make that clear for a reason. Because misconception is one of the vrittis, or the fluctuations of the mind, that create suffering. This is why people have a very hard time acknowledging the divine that is them, because they feel that the nature, the all, can separate and become something separate from itself. Okay, right now we're talking about the beginning. So listen, the nature has created matter, but also lives in it as its soul. There is a rearrangement and an inhabitation at the same time. So the creation didn't come off separate and take on some separate thing. No, it's all still the nature. The nature not only rearranged the matter, but also inhabits it at the same time. The soul part of nature, which is the rearranged energy, forgets. It's not a forgetting, right? I'm going to say that again. I said this earlier. I'm going to say it again. It's not a forgetting in the sense of your mind forgetting, no longer being able to recall a fact. No. It's forgetting in the sense of your consciousness has come from omnipotent and omnipresent into finite, localized consciousness. That's what that means. Okay. Your consciousness now has to focus. Rich rising. And so in this focusing, there is a type of forgetting that the soul is nature and sees itself. It doesn't say is separate, sees itself as separate. Okay. It begins to see itself as an individual among many individuals. So in that reorganization of energy, we begin to see differently, but it's not different. Okay. Again, here's my analogy. Here are my cheekbones. They're not changing, right? But if I put some contour on my cheekbones, it will give the illusion of higher, more pronounced cheekbones. That's how you will see it. Are my cheekbones in fact different? Have they shifted and become higher because the contour has come on them? No. When you take the contour off, my cheekbones will be the same. In the same way. Is this making sense? Because I want to go slowly and proceed cautiously because I'm teaching this for knowledge. And if you don't understand it, then we can't build upon that. This is what I mean when I ask you, what are you? I'm not asking who you are. I'm not asking about your sexual preference or presenting identity. I'm not asking you your race or region or culture. I'm asking you, do you understand the nature of your existence? Because if you don't understand it, the logic is about to tell you why. I'm going to let this logic tell you why. Okay. The nature in giving rise to matter, nature has created the illusion of duality, separateness from itself. The illusion of separation gives rise to feelings such as fear, greed, hatred, and anger. So what is the consequence of not knowing the nature of who you are? What is the consequence of not knowing the nature of who you are? That's a literal question. It just told us. Now you tell me, type it in the chat. I need to know that you're taking this in. What is the consequence of not knowing the nature of what you are? What is the consequence of focusing on who you are? I'm not saying who you are is not important. What I am saying is it's not of the utmost importance. You must have a foundation first. Anger, frustration, chaos, fear, all of that comes from what? The illusion of separateness. No growth. Because of fear, confusion, and all manner of toxicity and dysfunction, because you forget what you are. You forget that you are the nature having an experience. You forget that. And you begin to identify with all other things. We just finished the 9 parts of the self. You identify with the body, the Kemet. Right, believe in their separation. You identify with the Ka, the ego. But you don't know that there is a Ba, and your Ba is one with the eternal, universal Ba. Hey, Black Kemetic. Okay, so that's why we had to go over the parts of the self so we could come here and look at the nature of our existence in this realm. Okay, so nature has created the illusions of duality and separation from itself. The illusion of separation gives rise to feelings such as fear, greed, hatred, and anger because the individual believes that he or she must fight for his or her survival. You believe you must fight for your identity. That's what you believe. That's erroneous. It's not real. It's fictitious. It's made up. It's a lie. So you let people bring you, persuade you, pull you into meaningless spats and banter and fight about labels. Don't do that. Why would you not do that? Let's continue. It makes you think you must fight for his or her survival. That's a figment of a byproduct, rather, an artifact of not remembering. Okay? Since the individual does not remember that he or she is immortal and part of all other things, he and she develops the idea of looking out of self and of having a good time. Since you only live once, I got to do this because we only live once. Anybody who says that is in ignorance. Okay. And I know it's fun and it's a clever cliche, but it's not true. This imbalance, it calls it an imbalance, right? It's calling this imbalance. You are imbalanced when you have these illusions that you must fight and be in a tizzy because someone feels some kind of way or says something about you. This is an imbalance. This imbalance develops due to ignorance. It doesn't call it trauma, it calls it imbalance. And I like that because it's very descriptive. Because what is trauma but imbalance? But let's call it what it is so we can right the ship. You see, in the nature of the word imbalance, there is balance. The solution is made into the word. What is trauma? We don't know. What is the solution? I don't know. But if I call it imbalance, because that's what it is, then I must ask a follow-up question. How do I bring myself into more balance here? Is this making sense? This imbalance develops due to ignorance about one's spiritual nature. If you are not aware of what you are, then you are imbalanced. You spend time fussing about stuff that don't really matter. You spend time flexing about stuff that don't really matter. You spend time sabotaging your relationships over stuff that don't really matter. You spend time creating problems and chaos and suffering within yourself about things that don't really matter. When you don't know your spiritual nature, you sit there and you vouch for it and you feel justified because this is my truth, right? But when we're trying to deepen and widen and grow, when we're trying to come out of ignorance, right? We want this imbalance to shift. We no longer vouch for it. We no longer flex and defend for it. This imbalance develops due to the ignorance about one's spiritual nature. Therefore, ignorance, you see, therefore, it just followed logic. Therefore, ignorance is the root of all evils. Therefore, you forget what you are. Therefore, you fear. Therefore, you act. Therefore, you are in ignorance. Therefore, all of that you do, all you do as a byproduct of what I just experienced, the not remembering or forgetting is the root of all evil. That's the root. It doesn't say that fear is evil. It doesn't say anger is evil. You got to follow sound logic. It says acting from these things because you are imbalanced is the root of all evil. So what we're going to do, try to not be afraid? No. Try to not be angry? No. You need to understand what you are first and foremost before you start trying to just acknowledge behavior and manage it. Many people are talking about, I got to manage my emotions. I got to control I just sit there and I'll be like, no, you got to understand what you are first. That's first. Because if you base what you are off of something erroneous, then you're not going to stop acting like that. You're not going to be able to, because your self-image dictates how you behave and how you think, the way you see yourself. If you don't see yourself doing something, all is mental, then you probably won't do it. And once you are doing it, it's because you see yourself doing it, because all is mental and energy precedes matter. Anything you're doing is reflective of your self-image. Pause for a minute. Anything you say, anything you think, anything you do reflects your self-image, how you see yourself. Now, knowing that, you need to go throughout the day and see what conversations am I engaging in? What does this say about how I see myself? You are very worried about how other people see you, but you need to be concerned about how you see yourself. If you don't see yourself as childish, then you don't do childish things. Now, if you don't know what childishness is, you may do childish things unconsciously. When someone brings it to your attention, that's very childish, you don't get upset. You go, what about that is childish? Enlighten me so that I can shift. Rather than, oh, you said I'm childish. That was like, and the reason I use that is because that was one of the most disrespectful things in the past time when I was a younger person that you could say or do. Is tell someone they're childish. You're too old for that. That's childish. Act your age. Because I grew up hearing that, right? When I was a child, needing to be childish, I heard that childishness was a problem. And so I grew up having a natural bend toward being offended over that word, to the point where even when no one was saying it, I was still thinking and speaking from it. And I would say, I'm not a child. I don't know who you talking to. I'm not your child. And the person would be looking at me like, who said you a child? I'm Some of y'all out there, you like that too. But when you find out that childish is not evil, it's not a bad thing. It will make you aware that there's a difference between how you're thinking, how you're behaving, and what you're trying to accomplish. To know that something is childish means you can shift it. There's a scripture that says, when I was a child, I thought like a child. I spoke like a child. I acted like a child. But when I became a man, an adult, I put away all childish thinking. So don't you think you need to know if you're still carrying around some childishness when you're supposed to be adult in mindset? Don't you think you need to know that? But because you see yourself as separate and you identify with your ka, when someone says that, it's the most disrespectful thing. And you're going to defend your childishness. No, and become even more childish, because that's what children do. They can't see any farther than what's in front of them. And if you try to give them some wisdom, they will flex against the wisdom. That happens in adults. That's because you don't know your nature, and you're offended by all kinds of things because you are in fear that you look a certain way, fear that someone sees you a certain way, fear of loss. You think you must fight for your identity. This is all a byproduct of not understanding what you are. And with your words, you can say, I'm divine. But your self-image is not divine. Your self-image is actually pretty low. You don't even know when you're being childish. You don't even know when there's something that needs to shift. So that leads to fear. And you're dwelling in fear. And you don't know it. Because you don't know who you are, yet you're saying, I'm divine. So what does it mean to know that you are divine? It means that You have experiences, but those experiences don't have to control you. You learn to purify your mind and practice virtue so your perspective can shift. You connect with the divine through spiritual practice. So you are one. That's why we practice yoga. Yoga in Kemet was called Smai Tawi, union. You practice union with the divine. You're not just connecting with the divine as some outer source. You're connecting with yourself when you connect with the divine. So if you don't have any divine practices, any spiritual practices, then you think the divine really is on that altar. Then you think you really are separate from your ancestors. Then you think that you must petition a deity. This is a tool, right? And let me clarify. I'm not against altars. I'm not against statues. I'm not against your practices that help you see the divine outside of yourself. That's part of a spiritual growth. That's part of it. But that is supposed to lead you into more oneness, not continual separateness. Eventually, you begin to be the embodiment of the divine that you are, and you don't need all these extra things. You use them because it's helpful, because it's like a mind hack, right? We need rituals sometimes because the mind going here, there, and everywhere. Ritual helps us to focus that prana and that attention. So yes, we do need ritual. And yes, the outer things can be helpful. But if it was only you in a desert, you could have a ritual just by yourself, moving your body. You don't need Palo Santo, essential oils, and sage. You could develop some spiritual practices with your hands, with closing your eyes and looking at your third eye. You have everything you need in you. You are divine. I'm not just saying that. It's true. However, we start our awakening by seeing things outside of us, and that's okay. And even if you grow to a more advanced level, you may still want to use those things. That's fine. You may find it helpful to see the divine outside of yourself. You're just looking at yourself anyway, even if you see it outside. It's still you. But don't be confused. Don't be confused. The thing that you have projected outside is also you. Okay. So however you got to work with this, I'm not coming against the practice. I'm coming to remind you that you are the divine, the nature, seeing yourself as separate and moving in fear because you forgot. And so don't hear me say that you got to be without fear or you don't know you're divine. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is when you feel fear, because you remember what you are, you begin to plug into a well, a source of energy that never runs dry. Can I continue? Yes. Let me know if this makes sense. Because one thing I don't want to do is get here and offer this teaching and you walk away from it and you don't know how to apply it. Okay, you're going to feel all kinds of emotion because it's in our human design to experience them. Nobody's trying to sit here and go emotionally flat. I'm not. But the very existence of one emotion makes the opposite available also. You must know that. That's the nature of things. So you're not going to know only contentment. You're going to know also how it feels to not have and master moving yourself back into contentment. The other day, a friend said to me, "Can I read the Tao Te Ching to you?" And I said, "Absolutely, you can. That's my language." And as she was reading it, it was just further downloading, streaming divine energy into my system, infusing myself even more with it. And one of the chapters is, it says, once you know beauty as beauty, then ugliness is possible. When you were undifferentiated, there was no thing to call beauty because it was just all. When we became differentiated, we began to see ourselves as separate. That is beautiful. We called it something. So then there came a standard of beauty, which made ugly possible. When we were undifferentiated, there was no right and wrong, good and bad. There was just energy. But once we became separate and looked out and said, that is good, and God saw that it was good, then already appeared the opposite, which is, that is not good. We call that evil. I could go there, but I'm not. In the Genesis story, when God presents good, and God saw that this was good, God said, and let there be light, and there was light, and God saw that the light was good. Then God also created not good, because there is, upon creation of one thing, the opposite also appears, and God knew this. God is omnipresent, omnipotent. That's meaningful. We're going to park it right there and maybe talk about it a little later. Planting seeds. Ntr, N-E-T-E-R, is pronounced Ntr, is the absolute reality which lies beyond time and space. Something just clicked, 64, you said, ah. Ntr is the absolute reality that lies beyond time and space. When we were undifferentiated, there was no time. There was no time. And that's what is meant by time is an illusion. Time is an artifact of taking on a finite existence, of the nature being reorganized into a what we call a human form. Time came about. And even the measurement of time, what we're calling time, when there was no clock, there was duration. And ancient people measured duration by the movement of the planets and the sun. This artificial time came in, right, with more of the one world order, the desire to universalize the way that we experience reality, which took it away from natural order and brought it into an artificial order. I could go there. That's not the topic of this either, but think about that. You're on a timeline and you're rushing. By this age, I should have that. And by this age, I should have be this. I should have done this. I should already. And this and picture, it's not even real. It's not even real from culture to culture. Because some cultures, they're not aspiring for the things that we aspire for here in the West. So even that is an illusion. You want to follow illusions, or you want to live this life as the divine? Which one? You know what the result of not knowing the nature of yourself is? Moving in fear of timelines. Oh my God, I'm 40, I'm 50, and I'm still here. I'm 20, and I don't have that. I'm 30, and I didn't do this. You want to do that? Because I'm telling you, when you, this is a consequence of not knowing your nature. We have to deprogram our system. This comes over time. It's not going to come just because I said it. B-side, you get it, right? This is not going to come just because I'm saying this to you. It's going to come through practice. You must practice this. That is one of the reasons why I love working with the galactic Mayan timekeeping dream spell system, because it helps me to practice coming out of the illusion. So let's continue. And mind you, Ntr created this illusion. Okay. Ntr is the absolute reality which lies beyond time and space. Ntr is boundlessness, formlessness, timelessness, etc. We are Ntr. Matter exists because Ntr sustains it through the qualities of material existence. We got to take a moment to breathe that in. You could tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't know about you, but I know about me. When I grew up, I was not taught this. So death was the worst thing, the end. And you either go into heaven or hell. So you don't even have to for real live right. You just must accept the Savior so you could go to heaven. And then you live in fear because you like, did I really accept them? Like, what does it mean? I'm doing the wrong thing. Am I really saved? Now you're in fear. This is how you know that a teaching is not divine, because now you're beginning to question the nature of your existence because you don't even know it. When we hear that someone is about to be done with their body, no, that's how I was raised. Was y'all raised like that? I was not taught spirituality. I was taught religion, and I loved it. Don't get me wrong. Okay. I'm not against it. I'm not one of those people sitting here saying, don't go to church, don't read the Bible, don't do this, because I grew up in that. Okay. And I grew out also. So I'm not saying don't go there. Don't hear that. But I was not taught spirituality. I was not taught about the nature of myself as divine. And so I only saw myself as finite, and I only saw others as finite, and death is the worst possible thing that could be happening. So I'm going to pray for a long life, and I'm going to pray for a long life for you and my children and my children's children, trying to come against the whole cycles of nature, the whole nature of my existence. I didn't know. Am I saying prolonging life is wrong? No. What I am saying is there's more beyond this. So if Ntr is boundless, formless, timeless, and we are Ntr, and matter exists because Ntr, us, the divine consciousness, sustains it, then when we get done with this body, we're not done. We move back into another quality of energy. But if you think that this human body is it, then you think you lose connection. Hey, Michelle, you think you lose connection with people when they get done with the body. You think that. And so you grieve because you are not used to spiritual connections. Hey, if you were used to spiritual connections, and that's why I spend my time teaching and bringing you beyond the mental, beyond the constructs, into the soul. And now I'm calling you beyond that. Your relationships need to inhabit the entirety of your divine self. But first, you got to know your nature and see yourself as it. And right now, I'm not talking about worth, because some people want to feed their ego with worth, and you need to, okay? But that's not all. Right? So when you stay on the level of I'm worth more than this, you need to know that, yes, but you need to live from that too, not just fuss at someone else because someone else is not doing what you want them to do. I deserve more. You do deserve more, but you're fussing at the wrong person. You're getting mad at the wrong person. You are focusing your attention on the wrong person. You need to turn inward and go, what do I need to do to shift my self-image? What do I need to do to become more one with the nature of what I am? What do I need to do? Not they should be doing this and they should be doing that and they're not doing this and that. That's not where we're going here. I'm beyond that in this teaching. When you understand the nature of this existence and how you exist in it from the divine perspective, you automatically begin to see how living from this this egoic existence is problematic. The ego itself is not problematic. The problem is you are ignorant of the way you exist naturally. So the solution is to come back to that. Come back home to self. Stop looking outside of self, because the reason that you are interacting outside of self the way that you are is because you don't know what you are. And that's all of us. And that's why I started these teachings off by saying this life is about evolution, remembering, coming back together into wholeness. So if you want to sit there and fuss about a label, do it. That's just where you are. Ashe. In the undifferentiated realm, everybody exists. That's the same thing anyway. So ashe. If you're fussing about who's not treating you right, you got to be there, because that's going to be the rabbit hole that brings you deeper into yourself. Then do that for a second, but realize that there's more. If you want to fuss about someone treating you like the past version of you and you're not that person anymore, you want to fuss about that, you might need to fuss about it for a little while. But let that be a rabbit hole into more. When I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about simply self-love. I'm beyond. I love myself, so I'm not going to put myself in these positions. Yes, that's true. And don't do that. But going deeper, I am nature. And being on this level of existence doesn't make sense to me, because it's all an illusion. I would like to be creating something else, and I know I can because I'm nature, and there are other people who know that they are nature, and that's the grouping I want to be in and grow with. Let's continue. Is this making sense? Let me stop. Is this making sense? If you want to grow beyond some of the stuff we have been experiencing, we got to start at the beginning. Because we just read that the ignorance of your nature is the root of all your suffering, the root of all your arguments. Because you are in fear, you blame. Because you don't see yourself properly, you receive blame. Because you don't know the difference between suspicion and intuition, you accuse. Because you don't know that you are nature and your self-image is off, you over-explain through the accusation. Do you see? This is the root of it all. You think that I'm separate from you, and you think that you're separate from me. So when you villainize me, when you invalidate my idea, when you bypass it, or I do the same, I'm doing it to myself. It's showing that I don't know what I am. It's showing that I don't know my nature. What's the solution? Feel judged because I said that? No. Come out of this imbalance daily through practicing the virtues, right? And if you need help with that, you can sign up for coaching. You can go to my YouTube channel and review the last series that I just completed, the 9 parts of self. Okay, let's continue. Matter is subject to existence within time and space. We do live in time and space. So don't go off saying, I'm nature, I'm beyond time. You are. And also, like 64 says, you are and also in time and space too. So you must abide by some universal principles and laws as well. Okay. Matter is subject to existence within time and space, coldness, movement, solidification into physical form, tending to be drawn toward its original perfect state of equilibrium, which existed before the apparent duality. Let me read that again. Matter is subject to existence within time and space, coldness, movement, and solidification into physical form, tending to be drawn towards its original perfect state of equilibrium, which existed before the apparent duality. You know why you experience pain when you're not being treated right? Because you have forgotten what you are and begun to create from your forgetfulness. You have forgotten what you are, and you are moving in fear, and you are moving in all these different imbalances with others, and you're dancing together with it, and you're glorifying it, but it's really decreasing your quality of life, and it is the root of everything that you're experiencing. It's not funny. It's not fun. Not when you're trying to evolve and you have to keep being in these loops of confusion and ego. Your relationships, no matter whether it's platonic or filial or romantic, your relationship consists of your nature soul, their nature soul, and the combination of the nature soul and the nature soul that is universal. When your combination, I call it us, when the us factor does not know what its nature is and what you are here to do, you start doing all kind of dysfunctional things. This is human. We begin to self-sacrifice and overgive. We move into codependency and passive aggressiveness and defensiveness. And we move into martyr mentality and savior mentality. And we're doing all of that. And none of that is evolving us in drawing us. Let me use the words here. It's not tending to have us be drawn toward our original perfect state. No, now I'm stuck trying to convince you that I'm good. And you trying to convince me that you're not childish. You're trying to show me that you're spiritual. And I'm trying to show you that your shadow is okay. What are we doing? Not remembering. So I'm going to ask you a question. In your relationships, if you were not doing all the things that I'm mentioning, what would you be doing? What could you be doing? And what would that look like? What would your relationships look like without all of that stuff I just mentioned? What would your relationships look like if you knew that you were nature and you knew that they are nature and they knew that they are nature and they know that you are nature? What would that look like? Now, I could hear somebody in my spirit saying, but everybody is not where you are, because people say that all the time. There are people who are here and there are people who are growing and there are people who are unaware this exists. And there are people who don't want to know it exists. You get to choose. Just because other people are not here or there doesn't mean that you have to reach down and go down there with them. That doesn't mean that. But if you do that, it's because you see yourself down there also. And that makes sense. But when you begin to evolve and see yourself from a balanced point of view that is not ego oriented, but simply what is said. Listen, some people can say, and I've heard it said, that she's arrogant. They're going to say you're arrogant when your self-image is shifting. But I didn't write this book And I didn't create this spiritual philosophy. I just practice it because I am it. So if you're telling me that because and I hear spiritual people saying, I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to get the big head. This is not, you forgot where you came from. No, actually, there's some truth in that. I forgot where I came from, but it's not what you're talking about. You see, in becoming human, my consciousness got real focused on the finite and I forgot, but I am remembering that I am nature. And see, this right here, this sarcasm and pettiness and sideways comments, I'm beginning to remember that I'm beyond that. I'm beginning to remember that that's problematic and the root and is ignorance, which is the root of suffering. I'm beginning to remember. So you're right. I forgot my origin for a time in this life, but I am remembering. I'm coming back into wholeness. And yes, that does mean that I say no thank you to some things. I don't need to judge it. It is what it is. I know I don't want it, because how I see myself continues to evolve with time. And if how you see yourself does not evolve in time, you will keep choosing the same thing because your self-image hasn't changed, even though your knowledge has increased. This is Kemetic spirituality, right? And the reason I'm saying that is because your ego will cause you to not like what I'm saying, right? And decide you don't like me and you missing some good stuff. So that's why I'm pointing this out so I can catch your ego and go, you're not going to block this. You're not going to turn this into something that it's not. This is going to remain a pure teaching and you're going to see your power self in it. Okay. So that's why I'm bringing it up, because sometimes I got to speak to the ego and cause it to sit down. She thinks she all that. And she think, no, the book says I am. And the book says you are too. So can we get about the business of actually being that versus fussing about who's not a teacher and who and how she move her hands? Can you hear the words that are coming forward? The hika, the divine transformation that is coming. Can you focus on that? See, sometimes you got to speak to that. As such, these are divine principles that affect every physical object. Because we live in time and space, there are divine principles that affect every physical object, including the human body. The primordial state of our true being is spirit, because the very same matter that is given life owes its existence to spirit. In order to have worldly experience, our spirit projects or rearranges itself with matter, in matter, or clothes itself with matter, a different vibration. In so doing, the spirit forgets or becomes focused and sees through what matter allows it to see through. It forgets that it is spirit and identifies with the matter which composes the body, and begins to look for fulfillment and be led by desires. The spirit, now clothed in matter, acts in ways which are in accordance with the laws of matter, but because it remains ignorant of the underlying spiritual reality, the laws of matter, which originally were divine, become expressed as satanic or demonic behavior or ignorant behavior, fear, avarice, selfishness, vanity, hatred, passion, the endless accumulation of objects, or overindulgence. It says, in other words, spirit reorganized itself into matter, the human body. To be in this lower vibration, you only see reality a certain way. And because you only see reality a certain way, and this brain, this matter is very programmable, you begin to only see that way. In other words, you forget that you are nature, that you are spirit. The result of that is, instead of abiding by divine principles in remembrance, you take on fear, you take on ignorance, you take on helplessness, and all of these things, and you begin to act from that. And because everyone or most people are doing it, you think that's what it means to exist here. You have forgotten that infused into every cell, every energy that is you is nature. You owe your existence to nature because you are nature. In and of themselves, time and space are not evil. However, when spirit becomes identified with the limited concept of time and space, I don't have enough time. I ain't got enough time. I'm running out of time. So then you bring yourself into fear and anxiety, you see? Oh, I don't have this, I don't have that in space and time. And you begin to move in low self-confidence and poor self-image. Big Bear, what's up? When you become identified with that, it's evil in the form of egotistical, self-centered behavior emerges. The symbol for time and space is the cross. Did you know that? It's right here. I didn't make it up. So you can stop demonizing the cross, because sometimes you get like those people and they demonize stuff they don't understand, and then you come out of it and start demonizing stuff you don't understand. But in Kemet, the cross was the intersection of time and space. You probably can't see it. You see it? The cross. So now, can we stop regurgitating that the cross means death? And you can use the cross if you want to indicate time and space. You can. Now, for some people, that does represent death. That's why this is all an illusion. To one person, it's one thing. To another person, it's another thing. You can choose. Okay? If you're looking in Kemet, the cross, why are you thinking the Ankh? There is a cross there. Okay, let's continue. The spirit is symbolically crucified on the cross of time and space when it enters into physical form. Meaning we forgot. Okay, we forgot. So I'm not going there, but the book goes there, so we're going. The passion of Jesus is a symbol of the passion experienced by every soul which comes into physical form. The task, therefore, is to return to the primordial state of fulfillment by spiritualizing matter, one's own body, and consciousness by identifying with our spiritual nature. You don't even have to demonize the passion of the cross. You don't even have to demonize Christ. You could stop demonizing all of it for real. You could stop identifying with it, in other words, right? Let them people mind their business and you mind yours. Here we go. The task, now it's telling us what the task is. The task, therefore, is to return to the primordial state of fulfillment. Is the task to leave the church and get even more belligerent? Is the task to become more spiritual and become even more belligerent? Is the task to gain more and more knowledge and beat people up and try to crucify them and judge them? Is that the task? No, it says the task is to return to the primordial state of fulfillment by spiritualizing matter, one's own body and consciousness, by identifying with our spiritual nature. Evil itself provides a road to the realization of its own wrongness, because evil actions create consequences of pain, suffering, and death, which allow the superficial mental consciousness to awaken to its deeper divine self and eventually to discover the true equilibrium it cannot find in the world of time and space. So listen, you can call a thing evil if you want, just like you can call a thing good if you want, right? But even what we are calling evil is there to awaken you to your divine state. It's there to awaken you into your divine state. It's meant to awaken you to your deeper divine self and eventually discover the true equilibrium. So, are you going to sit there and keep fussing that people believe this and that or the other thing? Fussing, trying to pull them out of it. The goal of that is to give them an opportunity to awaken. So, why are you trying to pull them out? I just read that. The goal is not for you to come against things and try to get people to wake up and see. I know we be passionate about that when we first start. I was too. But now we're seeing that we need to pipe down, because anything we're calling good and evil has the same purpose, which is the awakening of the soul into its true nature. Let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if somebody just found some liberation. You don't have to keep coming against people. All of this is going to give opportunities for awakening. Now, that doesn't mean you need to stay around them and tolerate it, because you don't want to put yourself in a frequency of ambivalence. You want to be in frequencies of pleasure and joy and flow and enlightenment. You can't do that. Thank you, String. You can't do that if you're down here judging and trying to pull people into something they don't want to be or cannot be right now. Sometimes the pain that is caused when a person separates awakens the soul. We don't leave so someone can be awakened. We don't cut people off so they can be awakened. We don't leave them alone so they can be awakened. We're doing that because we're creating our own quality of existence and remembrance and allowing them to be on their path as well, because their path may not be flowing in a parallel existence with ours. It may not be, and it doesn't need to, because time is an illusion. Whether they change tomorrow or next year or 10 years from now or whatever, that's based upon their life path. That's not your business. And also, you cannot sit around hoping that their change happens in a time frame that you feel good about so that you can journey together, right? So you got to make some decisions from your deep, deep, primordial sense of who you are and how you see yourself. I'm going to stop right there because y'all stopped tapping the screen. So I don't know what happened. Sometimes I get worried that you can't hear me, because sometimes I have been talking real good and people have said the screen froze or something like that. All right, I'm coming to the end. Okay, good. Listening hard. Okay. The human form is the only one in which consciousness can realize itself to be both physical and spiritual at the same time. The way to realize one's spiritual nature is to hold the qualities of matter and spirit in balance, or ma'at. Working and listening. Okay. So we're not trying to go so spiritual that we're talking about the body is of no use. And no, you're going to take care of your body too. You're going to inhabit both qualities of matter and spirit in balance. Balance. Not going too far in the physical that you're not attending to your spirit, not going so spiritual that you're not attending to your physical. You must eat, you must drink, you must move, you must attend to your energy bodies, you must care about your emotions, you must care about your mental existence, you must take care of your nervous system. Nobody told us that. And it says you must do this through virtuous actions, such as selfless service, being non-coveting, etc., by making sure evil ideas diminish, evil feelings diminish, or intentions diminish when they arise in the mind. I'm going to read these next two parts here because I think this is going to be a suitable place to stop. Evil goads good or positivity. Evil produces good out of its complacency, or persuades, I should say, not produces. Evil persuades good or goads good out of complacency unto strength and higher wisdom through the struggle to overcome. Evil, that's what the scripture means when it says that you have meant these things for evil, but God has worked them out for my good. Spiritual people need to hear this because they be always talking about who put a hex on them and who doing some work on them or against them and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that people are not. But when you remember what you are, because these people are not operating from what they are. These people are operating from the lower vibration of the Ka, which is the root of all ignorance. So you remembering what you are in a deep sense, you realize that all things work together for my good. Yeah, I'm going to return to sender some energy. Yeah, I'm going to block certain things. But at the end of the day, it's not out of fear. It's about understanding how to move energy because of what we are. Okay. Therefore, here's the logic. I'm giving you something sound here. Okay. Since I just said that evil coaxes good, right, through overcoming, therefore, there really is no such thing as good or evil. It's an illusion. There are distinctions made by the ignorant who are unaware of the interconnectedness of everything and everyone in the universe. Through the struggle of positive versus negative, Eru and Set, yin and yang, giving and receiving, the great law of duality dictates positive or negative consequences according to our actions in handling circumstances. So your best protection is to be in balance within yourself. Hey, King. Be balanced within yourself. Don't be too far over here. Hey, Saint Lucid. Or too far over there. Or too far down here or too far up here. You need to be in balance. Practicing ma'at. Remembering what you are as Ntr. Crafting your self-image to see from that perspective. Coming out of powerlessness. And I'm going to stop right here. We're going to come back tomorrow. Well, maybe not tomorrow. If I come back tomorrow, it's going to be tomorrow night. But wise rising to you. If I come back tomorrow, it probably will be tomorrow night, but y'all know I will be live tomorrow at 9 a.m. in my yoga and Pilates class. Let's say Ashe to this teaching. Was this good for your spirit? Was it good for your soul? Was it practical? Did it encourage you to rise up from some of this lower level stuff? Ashe? Did it point in a different direction and cause you to want more or to become more settled in your existence? Yes, I'm going to put it on YouTube for sure. Ashe. Ashe. All right. So look at that. Thank you. Hey, Desiree. Hey, Moon. For a long while, for years, in fact, yes, stand on what you know to be true. Not from the ego, but from your knowing as nature, right? For a long time, I talked to you from a psychological base, and we need that. If you've been rocking in my audience for a while, we've been building over time. As I ascend and as I deepen and as I expand, then I bring that to you, right? So for a while, I spoke to you from a psychological base. And then I began to talk to you from an emotional and soul base. And I'm still going to do that. And I have added the spiritual base too. We need all of this. So here's a point of self-reflection. When you think about your life today versus life last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago, are you now living what was once knowledge? Or are you still living against the knowledge, but still having it? Has your knowledge become wisdom? In other words, are you living it out now? Or are you still practicing non-wisdom, but having the knowledge? Is your wisdom that you reflected upon 5, 6, 10 years ago now something natural? Or are you still struggling with it? And if you are still struggling with it, it's time for you to come into some deeper spiritual practices, living it now. And there's levels to it, right? So we never arrive. We go deeper into living into it, right? But do you see the integration happening? Yes. Living it in the knowledge, applying it is wisdom. You are so welcome. And again, don't hear me say that we arrive. I have not arrived anywhere. There's always higher heights and deeper depths and more expansion. There's always more, right? But we should feel and see the difference in the qualities of our existence from evolution to evolution, from glory to glory. Every round should go higher and higher. Okay, where we're not focusing on the people around us, we're focusing on the person within. And the person within is creating new experiences. And those experiences are matching your knowledge. Your experiences are matching your wisdom. Ashe. Ashe. All right. So if you're new here, welcome. Let me know because I want to welcome you. My core community, you know, I love you. I appreciate your existence. We rock and we roll, right? Through everything, good, bad, right, wrong, all duality, everything in between, and we grow together. If you would like some additional help, you can sign up for one-on-one coaching. That's on my website at veronicamarie.com. Coaching is not a personal conversation. Coaching is not talk therapy. Coaching is where you bring something that you want to understand more about yourself and you actually want to shift it. It's where you get insight and also strategy. You can do that on my website. If you want to experience virtual yoga, one-on-one or in a group, and I'm talking about the actual practice of yoga, not just the stretching, but the actual yoga, let me know. I am willing to form a group. If you want one-on-one, You can let me know as well. I also offer personal virtual training, right? I do it in person too, but I'm telling you that it is also available virtually. All of this is to serve the holistic needs of a well balanced life. I offer nutrition plans, right? I have a nutrition plan on my website. In fact, I have a growing digital library. I've been working on my audiobook. I found this beautiful app and I've been learning the nuances there. I do have a school account. I'm about to start uploading things there for lessons so you can have them as we go. I may take a lot off of YouTube. I'm not sure yet. So you can go there and enjoy what's there until I make the decision about that. All right. Is there anything else before I go? I don't think so. If you're in the Atlanta area on the first Saturday of April, my instructor and I are going to host a capoeira workshop. Capoeira is an Afro Brazilian cultural, spiritual practice and also a martial art. So we're going to hold a workshop there. We're going to learn about the culture, the instruments, the language, the music. We're going to learn some moves, and then you're going to actually witness a game, a harda is what it's called. And that's the first Saturday in April. Yeah, it's going to be nice. We got some big things coming that way in terms of capoeira. I'm excited about that. All right, that is it. If you would like a personal message and you didn't get a chance to get it at the beginning of this teaching, I'm going to make myself available today to give it to you. You don't ask me any questions. You just want a personal lesson, and I give it to you. I'll type it up and send it. All right, that's it. Well, be well with your soul. Let it be well with your soul today. In Lakesh Alakin.